2093. This was offered and rejected, so you'll want to mark it as a court trial exhibit. And then in terms of exhibit P-TR-2074 and 2075, I have deferred ruling on those two. And what I'm going to do is allow the defense an opportunity to show me any pictures that they believe depict what is depicted in those two photographs, okay? Susan. All right, are the parties ready for the jury?
We're ready, Your Honor.
Yes, Judge. All right, let's bring the jury in, please. Please be seated, everyone. The record should reflect that the jury is back in the courtroom. Mr. Orman, you may call your next witness.
Stacey Furman, Your Honor.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please be seated. Please tell us your full name and spell your first, middle, and last names.
My name is Stacey Furman. My first name is spelled S-T-A-C-Y, and my last name is spelled F-U-R-M-A-N.
Mr. Orman, you may proceed.
Who do you work for and what is your job title?
I work for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and I'm a physical scientist, forensic examiner in the latent print operations unit.
How long have you had that job?
Approximately 6.5 years.
What is a physical scientist forensic examiner?
I receive, inventory, and examine items of evidence for the presence of latent prints. I compare latent prints to the inked prints of known individuals, or I will search them through the FBI's known fingerprint database. I'll prepare reports on my findings and testify when requested to do so.
What is your educational background?
I have a Bachelor of Arts in Criminal Justice with a concentration in Forensic Science from the Richard Stockton College of New Jersey, and I have a Master of Science in Forensic Science from the University of New Haven.
Specifically, what is your education, training, and experience in latent fingerprint examination?
I completed an approximate 18-month training program in the latent print operations unit under qualified examiners, And during that time, I learned how to properly receive, inventory, and examine items of evidence for the presence of latent prints. I learned how to scan, encode, and search latent prints through the FBI's fingerprint database. I also completed casework under qualified examiners, and I completed approximately 70,000 comparisons. I also passed moot courts, oral boards, written examinations, as well as comparison tests. And at the end of my training, I successfully passed the latent print unit's qualification examination.
Do you ever undergo proficiency testing in latent fingerprint examination?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
A proficiency test is an exam that tests the competency of an examiner. So for a latent print examiner, this would consist of having several photographs of latent prints that I would compare to several known fingerprint cards.
Have you passed your proficiency testing?
Yes, I have.
How often do you have to do that?
Once a year.
Is your lab accredited?
Yes, the laboratory is accredited by the American Society of Crime Lab Directors Laboratory Accreditation Board, and they do an audit of forensic laboratories to ensure that laboratories are following standard operating procedures, as well as that they are providing quality work products.
How many times have you testified as an expert witness in court before?
Prior to this trial, I've testified 3 times.
In what courts?
In courts in Maryland, New Jersey, as well as Alabama.
How many times and how many cases have you acted as a forensic fingerprint examiner?
I've worked over 200 cases.
How many fingerprints have you analyzed in your career?
Over 100,000.
Your Honor, I would ask that the court accept Ms. Furman as an expert witness in the field of latent fingerprint comparison.
Is there any objection?
No further objection.
Without further objection and based on my rulings in order D-107, the court accepts, is it Agent Furman?
I'm an examiner, I'm not an agent.
Examiner Furman as an expert witness in the field of latent fingerprints comparison. That's pursuant to Rule 702 of the Colorado Rules of Evidence and People v. Schreck, which is published at 22 Pacific 3rd, 68, Colorado, 2001. What that means, members of the jury, is that Ms. Furman has been accepted by the court as an expert witness in the field of latent fingerprints comparison, and she may now render expert opinions in that field. As I have been mentioning to you throughout the trial, you are not bound by the testimony of a witness who testifies as an expert. The credibility of an expert's testimony is to be considered as that of any other witness. You may believe all of an expert witness's testimony, part of it, or none of it. The weight that you give the testimony is entirely your decision. Mr. Orman, you may proceed.
What is a latent fingerprint?
On the palmar side of the hands and the soles of the feet is a specialized skin called friction ridge skin. And if you look at your hands, the friction ridges are the raised portions of the skin, and the furrows are the flat portions in between. A latent print is the reproduction of that friction ridge arrangement, which can occur when those friction ridges become coated in a substance such as sweat or oils. And it's possible when those friction ridges come in contact with a surface, a latent print can be left behind.
What do labs do to find those latent prints so you can see them and compare them?
Laboratories use chemicals, forensic light sources, as well as powders in order to develop them. And the types of techniques that I utilize is dependent on the type of item, as well as the size of the item and the condition of the item.
Can you please tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what type of results you can get when you compare known prints to latent prints that you recover at a crime scene?
There are 3 conclusions that I can come to, which includes an identification, an exclusion, or inconclusive decision. With an identification decision, I'm stating that the latent print and known print originated from the same source. With an exclusion decision, I'm stating that the latent print and known print did not originate from the same source. And with an inconclusive decision, I'm unable to come to an identification or exclusion decision, and this is typically based on the comparable area not being in the known fingerprint card. And this is typical when I develop latent prints from the extreme sides or tips of the fingers, because this isn't an area that's typically recorded on a known fingerprint card.
And do you do this pursuant to FBI lab standards and protocols?
Yes, I do.
And is it the same type of test and methodology that the FBI uses that crime labs across the U.S. and the world use?
Yes.
Is that called the ACE methodology?
It's called the ACE methodology, and it's an acronym that stands for Analysis, Comparison, and Evaluation.
Did you get a set of exemplar prints from Sandra Fisher at the Aurora Police Department?
Yes, I did.
Did you analyze items of evidence collected from the defendant's apartment and compare them to known prints from the defendant?
To my knowledge, yes, I did.
In other words, you weren't there at the apartment.
No, I was not. I didn't collect any of the evidence.
How many specific, now we've talked about Q numbers with other witnesses and we've seen how that works. How many different Q numbers did you analyze?
Approximately 173 Q items.
And when you break that down into individual
So those are some factors that can affect whether a latent print will be left behind.
Do you sometimes get a fingerprint that there is a print left, but it's not something you can use for comparison?
Yes, this would be a latent print that's not of value, meaning there isn't a sufficient amount of clarity and quantity of information in the print in order to affect an identification.
And is there a time where you actually get a print that might be approaching being a good print for identification, but you get an inconclusive result?
Yes, and the inconclusive result is based on the known fingerprint card, that comparable area not being in the known print.
Now, is an inconclusive result the same as an exclusion?
No, it's not.
Would it be fair to say that the majority of the items you analyzed, you did not get usable fingerprints?
Yes, because I processed over 1,500 items and I only developed prints on approximately 48 items in the case.
All right, let's talk about all 1,500 items individually. I'm kidding about that. Let's go through some of the items that you found the fingerprints on. And if I showed you some photographs taken at the lab with the Q numbers on that, would that assist you in determining whether or not you analyzed that item and found fingerprints on it?
Yes, it would.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up exhibits that have already been admitted into evidence and ask you to take a look at the Q number and tell me whether you analyzed that item and found any fingerprints of value on it. So if we could please put up exhibit 4307, which has been admitted.
Can I also refer to my report?
May she do so, Your Honor, to refresh her memory?
Any objection?
No.
You may do so.
Thank you. So what Q number is this?
This is Q4, which is one frying pan.
Did you find any useful prints on this?
I'm on page 10 of my report, and I developed 2 latent fingerprints on Q4 frying pan.
Did they identify to a specific individual?
I identified the 2 latent fingerprints to the known fingerprint card bearing the name James Egan Holmes.
We could please put up exhibit 4308, which has been admitted. And what Q number is this?
This is Q5, and this is a blue-colored cooler with fishing line attached on handle.
Did you find any prints of value on this?
Yes, I did. I developed 1 latent fingerprint on this item.
Did it identify to an individual?
Yes, the latent fingerprint was identified to the known fingerprint card bearing the name James Egan Holmes.
We could please put up exhibit 4310, which has been admitted. What Q number is this?
This is Q7, which are black-colored half spheres.
Did you find any fingerprints of value on this item?
I developed 1 latent fingerprint of value on 1 of the half spheres.
And did that identify to a specific individual?
I identified that 1 latent fingerprint to the known fingerprint card bearing the name James Egan Holmes.
We could please put up 4348, which has been admitted. What Q number? Well, I think we can all see that's Q24. Did you analyze this for fingerprints?
Yes, I did.
Did you find any?
Yes, there was 1 fingerprint and 1 palm print on this item.
Did they identify with any particular individual?
Yes, the fingerprint and palm print were identified to the known fingerprint cards bearing the name James Egan Holmes.
If we could please put up 4349, which has been admitted. What's the Q number on this?
It is Q25.
And did the lab sort of divide this up into little mini Q numbers?
Yes, the original Q number came with several items, therefore I pointed out or separated some of the items.
Did you find any fingerprints of value on these soda bottles?
Yes, on one of the bottles, I developed one latent fingerprint and one palm print, and then on a second bottle, I developed two palm prints.
Did they identify any particular individual?
Yes, all latent prints were identified to the known fingerprint card bearing the name James Egan Holmes.
If we could please put up 4351, which has been admitted. It looks similar, but you can see one of those is clear. What's the number, Q number on this one?
It's Q27.
Did you analyze these items for fingerprints?
Yes, I did.
Did you find any?
Yes, I developed two latent fingerprints and one latent palm print on one of the bottles.
Did they identify with a particular person?
Yes, all of the latent prints were identified to the known fingerprint cards bearing the name James Egan Holmes.
If we could please put up 4354, which has been admitted. What Q number is this?
This is Q30.
Did you find any fingerprints on this?
Yes, I developed three latent fingerprints on this item.
Did they identify with any particular individual?
Yes, all latent prints were identified to the known fingerprint card bearing the name James Egan Holmes.
If we could please put up a photo 4365. And what Q number is this?
This is Q41.
Now, before I ask you about what you found on this, I want to ask you a couple more questions about fingerprints. How long can fingerprints remain on an object?
It's possible for latent prints to stay on an item for a long period of time, but it all depends on those different factors of whether or not a latent print will stay on an item, such as the type of surface as well as where it was collected from.
Is this a type of surface where things can stay for a long time?
It can be, yes.
And let me ask, since you're an expert witness, I can ask you a hypothetical question. So I'm going to ask you a hypothetical question. If a person worked at, let's say, a company that sold items such as this, and then they were sold at the person who purchased them's residence, could the fingerprint from a person from that company still be on the items?
It's possible, yes.
Now, we've previously heard testimony in this case from a person named Anthony Evans who worked for a company named Cannon Fuse. Did you actually find a fingerprint from an Anthony Evans or Tony Evans on one of these items in Q41?
I'm looking at page 11 of my report, and I identified one latent fingerprint on Q41.12 to the known fingerprint card bearing the name Anthony Russell Evans.
Now, let's talk about these items, and I don't need you to necessarily go through them individually. Did you examine these for fingerprints, and did you find any fingerprints that you could identify with the defendant?
Yes, I did, and yes, I developed latent prints on these items.
How many fingerprints in Q41 did you identify as being the defendant's fingerprints?
I would have to actually count all of them because there are several.
Okay, why don't you...
There are approximately 12 items that I developed latent prints on out of that queue.
And why don't you tell us how many fingerprints you got for the defendant? Us to put up 4368, which has been admitted, please. Now, these are some bags of spheres. Did you process these for fingerprints?
I can't tell what the
Oh, I'm
queue
sorry.
number is.
This should be Q44.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did you find any fingerprints that you could identify as the defendant's fingerprints?
Yes, I developed one latent fingerprint on one of the half spheres, and it was identified to the known fingerprint card bearing the name James Egan Holmes.
If we could please pull up 4377. This should be Q53. Does that look right?
Yes.
Did you develop any fingerprints on this that you could identify as the defendant's?
Yes, I developed one latent fingerprint on one of the items, and it was identified to the known fingerprint card bearing the name James Egan Holmes.
If we could please put up 4396, which has been admitted. And this should be Q71. Does that look right?
Yes.
Did you find any fingerprints on this, and could you match them to anybody?
Yes.
Or, I'm sorry, did they identify as any particular individuals?
Yes, I developed 2 latent fingerprints and 1 latent palm print, and all of the latent prints were identified to the known fingerprint card bearing the name James Egan Holmes.
If we could please put up 4397. It looks similar, but this should be Q72. Does that look right?
Yes.
Did you find any fingerprints on this that you could identify with any particular individual?
I developed 1 latent fingerprint on this item, and that latent fingerprint was identified to the known fingerprints bearing the name James Egan Holmes.
If we could please pull up 4408. And these are, what is the Q number on this?
This is Q83.
Did you find any fingerprints of value on these items?
Yes, I developed 2 latent fingerprints on one of the bags.
Did they identify as any particular individual's fingerprints?
Yes, the 2 latent fingerprints were identified to the known fingerprint card bearing the name James Egan Holmes.
If we could please pull up 4409, which has been admitted. Some other similar bags. Did you analyze these for fingerprints?
I cannot tell what the Q number is.
I'm sorry, this should be Q84.
Okay. Yes, I processed these items.
And did you find any fingerprints of value?
Yes, I developed 1 latent fingerprint of value on a bag, and then 1 latent fingerprint and 2 palm prints on a metal strip.
Did they identify with any particular individual's fingerprints?
All latent prints were identified to the known fingerprint card bearing the name James Egan Holmes.
If we could please pull up 4411, which has been admitted. And this should be, is it Q86?
Yes.
Did you analyze this for fingerprints?
Yes, I did.
Did you find any fingerprints of value?
I developed 1 latent fingerprint on this roll of colored tape.
Did that identify with any particular individual's fingerprints?
Yes, the latent fingerprint was identified to the known fingerprint card bearing the name James Egan Holmes.
If we could please pull up 4412, which has been admitted. The different roll of tape. Did you analyze this for fingerprints? I'm sorry, this should be Q87. Did you analyze this for fingerprints?
Yes, I did.
Did you find any fingerprints of value?
I developed 1 latent fingerprint of value.
Could you identify that with any particular individual's fingerprints?
Yes, the latent fingerprint of value was identified to the known fingerprint card bearing the name James Egan Holmes.
If we could please pull up 4447, which has been admitted. An apartment rental agreement. Did you analyze this for fingerprints?
Yes, I did.
Now, unlike the other items, this is a piece of paper. Can you analyze paper for fingerprints?
Yes, I can.
Did you find any fingerprints or palm prints of value on that item?
There was 1 palm print of value on one of the pages of this document.
Did you
on this document.
Did you identify that with any particular individual?
Yes, I identified the latent print with the known fingerprint card bearing the name James Egan Holmes.
If we could please pull up 4332, which has been admitted. Did you analyze, we can all see this is Q131. Did you analyze Q131 for fingerprints?
Yes, I did.
Did you find any fingerprints of value?
Yes, I did.
Did that identify with any particular individual's fingerprints?
Yes, all latent fingerprints developed on this item were identified to the known fingerprint card bearing the name James Egan Holmes.
If we could please pull up 4333, which has been admitted. And I think we can all see that that's Q132. Did you analyze any of these paper targets for fingerprints?
Yes, I did.
And how many paper targets did you analyze? Do you remember?
There were approximately 143 targets.
Did you find any fingerprints of value on these targets?
Yes, I did.
How many?
There was 1 palm print on one of the paper targets and 1 fingerprint and 1 palm print on a second target.
Did any of those fingerprints, could you identify them with any particular person's fingerprints?
Yes, all the latent prints were identified to the known fingerprint card bearing the name James Egan Holmes.
Your Honor, that concludes my direct examination.
All right, is there cross-examination, Ms. Spengler?
No.
And the jury does not appear to have any questions for Ms. Furman. May Ms. Furman be released from her subpoena?
Please, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, Ms. Furman, thank you.
Thank you.
Call your next witness, please.
Kirsten Hahn.
Good afternoon. Could I have you raise your right hand so that I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please be seated. Can you please tell us your full name and spell your first, middle, and last names?
My name is Kirsten Chantal Hahn. My first name is spelled Kirstin. Chantal is spelled Chantelle. And my last name is spelled Hahn, Han.
Ms. Stitch McGuire, you may proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Were you at the Century 16 movie theater on July 19th and July 20th of 2012 in Aurora, Colorado?
Yes, I was.
Specifically, were you in Theater 9?
Yes.
Can you please tell the jury who you went to the movies with that night?
My husband, Eugene Hahn, my friends, Luke, Jennifer, and Adon. I'm sorry. Adon.
That was Luke, Jennifer, and Adon. Is that Jennifer and Adon Avila?
Yes, it is.
Is that Luke Priest?
Yes, it is.
All right. What did you do when you got to the movie theater that night?
We looked around for seats. We couldn't find 5 seats together. So then once we finally found 5 seats together, we went and sat down and we just chatted until the movie started.
And if I may approach the witness with what's been marked as People's Exhibit 1132.
Yes.
Do you recognize this diagram?
I do.
Does it fairly and accurately represent what you recall happening in the theater on July 20th of 2012?
Yes, it does.
At this time, I'd move for the admission of People's Exhibit 1132.
Is there any objection?
No.
Without objection, P-TR-1132 is admitted and may be published.
If I could please have 1132. All right, Ms. Davison, there's a little mouse in front of you. If you could try to, it's a little hard to use, see if you can get it to work and show the jury where exactly you were seated.
I was sitting right here.
Right, and where was Eugene sitting?
Right here.
Mr. Priest?
Right here.
Jennifer Avila Arredondo?
Right there.
And Adon Avila Arredondo.
Right there.
All right. Was there a shooting in your theater that night?
Yes.
Can you please tell the jury what happened when you got to that exit door that you left from? Did you see the shooter when you got to the exit door?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
I saw a human figure covered in, or all in black.
Right? If you could move the cursor to where you were when you were exiting, that you saw that where you were on that diagram by the exit door, where you were when you saw the shooter.
Right about here.
Right? And where was the shooter located? Did you physically see that person in armor?
Yes.
Dixon leading.
Sustained.
What did you notice about that person?
All black, gas mask, and like you can't see hair color or anything.
Did you notice anything come towards you as you were trying to exit the theater?
Like a person walking to me, or
Sorry, did you notice any flashes in the theater?
yes.
All right, could you describe for the jury where those flashes were as you were exiting?
Sorry, it's not working.
It's okay, sorry.
Arrows that are pointing towards the front of the theater, that is where we saw flashes
As you were trying to exit.
as we were trying to exit. Yes.
Did you have to seek any medical attention as a result of the shooting?
Yes.
Okay, and what injuries did you sustain?
I had shrapnel in my lower back and my buttocks.
Now, if I may approach the witness with what's been marked as People's Exhibit 4547, 4549, 4548.
Yes.
Thank you. Do you recognize those photographs?
Yes.
Do they fairly and accurately represent the injuries that you sustained on July 20th of 2012?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I move for the admission of People's Exhibits 4547, 4549, 4548.
Is there any objection, Mr. King?
No, sir.
Without objection, P-TR-4547 through 4549, inclusive, are admitted and may be published.
If I could have 4547. All right. And please tell the jury where this photograph was taken.
At the hospital.
The morning of July 20th, 2012?
Yes.
Okay, can I have 4549? Can you tell the jury what you see here?
It's a picture of my buttocks.
And are there shrapnel injuries in this picture?
Yes.
If I could have also what's previously been admitted as People's Exhibit 2190. Do you recognize the flip-flops in those photographs?
Yes, I do.
Whose flip-flops are they?
They are mine.
What happened that your flip-flops got left there?
As we were coming out of the theater, I had my flip-flops in my hand, and we were trying to get out as quick as possible, and I dropped them and kept going.
I have no further questions for this witness. Thank you, Your Honor.
Any cross-examination, Mr. King?
Thank you.
And the jury does not appear to have any questions. May Ms. Han be released from her subpoena?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No, without objection.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Call your next witness, please.
Eugene Hahn?
Could I have you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm on a penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Please be seated. Please tell us your name and spell your first, middle, and last names.
My name is Eugene Hahn, spelled E-U-G-E-N-E, S-U-N-G-H-O, last name Hahn, H-A-N.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Middle name S-U-N-G-H-O.
All right, you may proceed, Mr. McGuire.
Good afternoon. Were you at the Century 16 movie theater in Aurora, Colorado on July 19th and 20th of 2012?
I was.
Okay. Who were you there with?
My friends, Adon Avila, Jennifer Avila, Luke Priest, and my wife, Kristen Hahn.
Was there a shooting in your theater that night?
Yes, there was.
Could you please describe for the jury what you remember happening as you tried to flee the theater that night?
I was injured at the moment and could not stand up on my own, so my friend Luke Priest had to lift me off the floor. After that, we went down the stairs to the nearest exit to us, which is the exit that the shooter entered through. And as we were going down, I did see a figure down the hallway where we entered from, and I was the last one to get into the cubby and fell on top of my friends in there.
Your Honor, if I may approach Mr. Hahn with what's been marked as People's Exhibit 1130.
Yes.
I have no objection to 1130.
All right, are you moving its admission?
Please, Your Honor.
Without objection, it is admitted and it may be published.
If I could have 1130, please. And Mr. Hahn, there's a mouse up there that sometimes works. If you could use that and show the jury where it was that you were seated
I was sitting right here.
and your exit path that you left to try to leave the theater.
We exited in this direction.
All right. And where were you when you saw that figure down the hall?
Right around here.
And then where was it that you fell on top of your friends?
As I was exiting, I fell right here, this direction.
Could you also please describe for the jury where it was that the figure was that you saw?
Right around this area.
Thank you. Thank you. Did you need to seek medical attention as a result of the shooting?
I did.
Okay. Could you please tell the jury about your injuries?
I sustained an injury while laying on the floor to my hip, and as a result, I lifted my leg and also got shot in the knee.
And what other injuries did you sustain, internal injuries did you sustain as a result of the shooting?
The injury on my hip cut my urethra, and I also sustained nerve damage.
Right, Your Honor, if I may approach the witness with what's been marked as People's Exhibits 2014, 2015, 4879.
Yes.
Mr. Hahn, do you recognize these photographs?
Yes, I do.
Do they fairly and accurately represent your injuries from July 20th of 2012?
The knee injury, yes.
Okay. Is the other just a photograph of you in the hospital?
Yes.
Okay, Your Honor, at this time I move for the admission of People's Exhibits 2014, 2015, and 4879.
Any objection, Mr. King?
Judge, I object to 2015 and 4879 as cumulative.
Can I see those pictures, please?
Yes.
Your position, Mr. King, is that only one of these two pictures should be admitted. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, and I have no position as to which one.
All right, Ms. Teach McGuire, do you have a preference between the two?
Sure, 2015.
All right, so the objection is sustained. I will admit P-TR-2015, but not P-TR-4A79. And then P-TR-2014 is admitted without objection.
Thank you. If I could please have 2014. Is that just a picture of you in the hospital?
Yes.
Okay, and if I could please have 2015. Please tell the jury what we see in this photograph.
This is my knee injury sustained after the first one.
And can you please tell the jury about your hip injury that we cannot see in these photographs?
My hip injury was technically in my buttocks entering through the right side.
And did your hip actually shatter?
It did not shatter, but I did have a chip bone as a result.
Thank you. I have no further questions for this witness.
Any cross-examination, Mr. King?
No cross-examination, thank you.
There is a question from the jury, so give us a moment, please, sir. Susan, okay, can you give those to Susan? Would counsel please approach? May this witness be released from his subpoena, Ms. Teach McGuire? Any objection, Mr. King?
None.
Ms. Teach McGuire, I forgot to give you this, sorry. You can mark it later. Sir, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, call your next witness, please.
Julia Wojcik.
Can I have you raise your right hand for me so that I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm on the penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, please be seated. Could you please tell us your full name and spell your first and last names?
My full name is Julia Lauren Boytzek. Julia, Julia, Lauren, Lauren, Boytzek, Vojtsek.
Ms. Teach McGuire, you may proceed.
Were you at the Century 16 movie theater on July 19th and 20th of 2012 in Aurora, Colorado?
I was.
Who did you go to the movies with that night?
My boyfriend, John Larimer, and 3 of our friends.
Who are your friends that you went with?
Bear Omudsum, Greg McDonald, and Lauren Ellis.
What happened when you got to the movie theater that night?
We got there early, so we got our seats, and me and John went to Walmart to get some Batman attire, and then we returned about 20 minutes before the movie.
What attire did you get?
A cape and a Batman t-shirt for John.
How did you know John Larimer?
Objection, 401, 402, 403.
Overruled.
You can answer the question.
I met John when I was 18. We worked together.
And where was that?
That was in Chicago, Illinois.
How was it that you came to know John in Colorado?
Same objection, Your Honor.
I'll allow one more question. Overruled.
He's stationed at Buckley. He was in the Navy, and I came to visit him, my dad.
What happened in the movie theater that night?
All right, hold on. Counsel, please approach. Okay, you may proceed.
Was there a shooting in your movie theater that night?
There was
What do you recall happening in the theater?
a man wearing all black came in through an exit door and threw canisters, which poisonous gas is what I thought it was, and started shooting.
What did you do specifically when the shooting started?
John was sitting next to me, and he grabbed my head, and he pushed me to the floor. And so he was laying on top of me, protecting me from that.
Were you able to get up the first time you tried to get up when you went to leave the theater?
No, I was not.
Why not?
John had been shot.
And explain why it was that you were not able to get up?
Objection, asked and answered.
Overruled.
I tried to get up, but his dead body weight was heavy, and so I attempted to get up the first time and couldn't because it was too heavy.
How were you able to eventually exit the theater?
Several tries of kind of wiggling out from underneath him, and I eventually was able to run out after getting back from underneath him.
Your Honor, at this time, I would ask to show the jury what's previously been marked as People's Exhibit 2652.
Any objection?
No.
All right, without objection, you may do so.
If I could please have 2652. Is this John Larimer?
It is.
Did you ever see John Larimer alive again after July 20th of 2012?
I did not.
Thank you very much. I have no further questions for this witness.
Is there any cross-examination?
No.
and the jury does not appear to have any questions. May this witness be released from her subpoena? Is there any objection?
No.
All right, thank you. Call your next witness, please.
Bear Amundsen, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, sir. Could I have you raise your right hand for me so that I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm on a penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please be seated. Please tell us your full name and spell your first, middle, and last names.
My full name is Bear Rivers Omundson. Bear, B-E-A-R, Rivers, R-I-V-E-R-S, Omundson, O-M-U-N-D-S-O-N.
Mr. Brockler, you may proceed.
Thank you. And first, I'm sorry for butchering your last name like that. I have a question for you. What do you do for a living?
I am a student.
Back on July the 19th and 20th of 2012, were you a student?
I was not.
What were you doing?
I was active duty Navy.
Where did you work?
Buckley.
Relevance.
Sustained.
Your Honor, if I could, it lays the foundation for how he knows the people he's in the theater with.
He already answered the previous question, I think, gives it, so the objection is sustained.
Did you go to the movies on July 19th, 2012?
Yes.
Who did you go with?
John Larimer, Greg McDonald, Lauren Ellis, and Julia Voigtstedt.
How do you know John Larimer and Greg McDonald?
I was in the Navy with them.
At Buckley?
Yes.
Objection. Relevance.
Sustained.
Sir, when you got to the theater that night, was it crowded?
Not at first, no.
What time did you get there?
I'd say about an hour before the theater opened.
Did you guys all arrive together?
We did not.
Who got there first?
Myself, John, and Julia.
And we just heard testimony that Julia and John had left at some point to go get a Batman shirt and a cape. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Had you already picked out your seats by then?
We had.
And are those seats that you ended up staying in through the portion of the movie that you were able to see?
Yes.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Sir, I'm handing you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 1245. It doesn't really have any other markings on it. Do you recognize what that is?
Yes.
What is it?
A diagram of the theater?
Do you have a pen up there?
Yes.
Could you do us a favor and mark on there with initials where you recall everybody sitting? And then in the bottom portion where it's clear, could you write their names about with the initials?
Yes. 1 second. It's at the bottom right.
Wherever, sure. Bottom right's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
That place where you were sitting, now, we've already heard a lot of people talk about something unusual happening in that theater that night. What was the first thing you remember happening that was unusual?
Hearing someone open the exit door towards the front of the theater.
And then what?
Something being thrown into the audience and gas leaking from it.
Now, I'm going to ask you about some observations you had about that gas, about body armor, about small arms fire. Are you familiar with all of those things?
Yes.
Tell us how you're familiar with those things.
Those are all things I've been exposed to while I was in the Navy.
Okay. So the gas that you were about to describe, did you notice that it had an impact on you?
Yes.
What kind of impact?
Couldn't breathe, coughing whenever I tried to breathe, runny nose, runny eyes.
Is that consistent with what you'd received as training in the Navy?
Yes.
What was the next thing that happened after this canister of gas was thrown?
I started hearing gunshots.
What were the people around you doing?
No one reacted at first, and then eventually people started diving beneath the seats.
Did that include you?
I was pulled by John.
By John Larimer?
Yes.
Now, do you remember the sound of the first gunshots that you heard?
Yes.
What did it sound like to you?
A shotgun.
Had you heard that in the Navy as well?
Yes.
How many times do you think you heard that shotgun?
I don't know for sure.
Was it loud?
Yes.
When you were pulled down by John behind those seats, were you able to see anything at that point?
Yes.
Tell us what you saw.
I saw a man in body armor and a gas mask at the front of the theater, firing into the crowd.
Could you tell if that person was also wearing a helmet?
I could not tell that there was a helmet.
And you'd seen body armor and a gas mask before in the Navy?
Objection. Asked and answered.
I'm not sure that this particular question was asked before. Overruled.
Yes.
Did you see that person start moving?
Yes.
Where did they start moving, sir?
The person walked in the front for a little while, and then he started making his way towards the back of the theater.
Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. With that diagram up there, would you do me a favor? Would you print your name on it and put today's date?
Yes.
Can you please tell me what the number is at the bottom of that, on that little sticker?
It is number 1245.
Your Honor, I'm going to move for the admission of People's Exhibit 1245 into evidence.
Why don't you show it to Mr. King and see if he has any objection?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I have no objection.
All right, without objection, it is admitted.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to ask the witness to come down and talk us through what took place that he observed.
Yes.
Sir, can you grab, there's a microphone up there. Is it on? You got it. You see?
Yes, sir.
Would you do us a favor first and point out where you and the other three people that you saw the movie with were seated? Sorry.
Yes, it was, I don't know for sure if it was the 4th or the 5th row, but I was in the seat 11th from the right. So, I was here.
Okay. And where you're pointing there, and you've said 11th from the right, tell us who was to your left and who was to your right.
To my right was Greg McDonald, and next to him was Lauren Ellis, and to my left was John Larimer, and on his left was Julia.
Okay. Now, you've described for us someone coming in from that exit and throwing that gas can and starting to fire with a shotgun. Can you at least just point to where that exit was that person came in from?
Yes, it was, as you're looking at the screen, the bottom right.
Do me a favor, and you were about to describe how this person was moving. And I should have asked you this first. Was this movement that took place before, during, or after the shotgun blasts you heard?
After.
All right, well, talk to us about where this person was when they were shooting the shotgun.
Walked in the front a little bit, and then I don't know if he had transitioned to his assault rifle, but then he moved this way.
Tell us about that. What made you think he'd transition to an assault rifle?
The bangs from the gun were a lot quieter and coming at a lot faster pace.
Was it consistent with what you knew to be an assault rifle from your Navy training?
Yes.
Okay. Talk to us about how he was moving when he was firing that assault rifle.
He had it up against his shoulder. He was holding the grip on the front of the rifle and looking through the scope on the top of the rifle.
Can you tell us how he was moving around in this area?
No, I cannot.
Okay, and why is that?
I didn't see him after that point.
Were you ducked down?
Yes.
All right, tell us, do you have any idea how many shots?
No.
What's the next thing you remember happening that's different from hearing that assault rifle gunfire?
It got a lot quieter, and that's when we decided to move.
When you say quieter, had the shooting stopped?
No,
What do you mean by quieter?
farther away.
Okay. Could you tell where it went?
I had thought that it had gone up this hallway.
So what'd you do?
Excuse me. We decided to get up at that point. McDonald or Greg was saying, "Let's go," and John's leg was on top of my arm, so I started moving, trying to nudge him, saying, "All right, come on." And he wouldn't answer. I said, "Come on." He's gone. Let's go. Let's get out of here. But he still wouldn't get up. So I said, "Greg, get his legs. We're not leaving him here." So we picked we picked John up, and we started moving him out of the aisle and into the staircase.
All right. Based on where he was sitting, did you have to step over him to start to move him?
Yes,
And which part of his body did you grab?
his arms.
Okay. And you said Greg McDonald was the other one?
Yes,
And what did he grab?
his legs.
And were you able to move him down the aisle?
Yes, we got him into the staircase.
Was he heavy?
Yes.
What did you do when you got to the staircase?
We started taking him down, and we had to take him over somebody's body. And right when we got to the bottom, someone said he's coming back. So we dove into the front couple rows.
Couple things. Point to where you laid down John's body.
Right here.
Okay. And point to where you and Greg took cover when you thought he was coming back.
Right here.
Okay. What happened?
The gunman was on the other side of the front, or on the side from us, and firing more shots. People were coughing from the gas, thinking that they were going to suffocate. And once the shooting just died down, we decided to move again.
How much of the shooter could you see hunkered down there by those chairs?
The top of his head.
Okay. And could you tell if he had a helmet on or not?
No, I couldn't.
What'd you do?
We got up and tried to move John again, but the police had entered and were telling us to leave.
Where did you leave from?
This aisle, or this entrance.
Did you ever go back in?
No.
Yeah, I don't have anything further. Thank you, sir.
Do you have any cross-examination, Mr. King?
No cross-examination, thank you.
And there do not appear to be any questions from the jury. May this witness be released from a subpoena?
Without objection.
Okay. Sir, thank you. All right, members of the jury, it's a few minutes after 5, so we're going to go ahead and adjourn for the day and for the week. As you know, tomorrow is an off day. I'm going to go through the advisements because this is a long weekend. It's a 3-day weekend. I want to remind you that for those of you who might go back to work tomorrow, just be very careful. To the extent that people already know that you're on a jury, it may be helpful to ask your other people at work, whether it's your supervisors or people who you supervise or just co-workers, to not discuss the case in your presence and to not ask you any questions or say anything to you about the case. So just be extra careful with that. The advisements, again, are as follows. Number 1, please do not discuss any aspect of the case with each other through any means. You're free to talk with each other, but not about the case. I've been encouraging you to be friendly with one another, but you cannot talk about the case. Number two, you cannot discuss the case with anyone else. You cannot communicate with anyone else about the case through any means. That includes your spouse or significant other. It includes family members. It includes friends, co-workers, employers, friends, acquaintances. It includes everybody. All you can tell people is that you're on a jury in Arapahoe County, in the Arapahoe County District Court, and that we anticipate that we will need you until sometime in September. Do not talk to any witnesses, parties, or attorneys about anything, whether related to the case or not. To make sure that witnesses, parties, and attorneys and others do not talk to you about the case or do not talk to you at all, it is imperative that you wear your juror badge whenever you're on the courthouse grounds or on the courthouse premises so that everyone can see that you're a juror. Your juror badge will also reduce the risk that people may talk about the case in your presence. If, despite your best efforts, say you hear someone talking about the case and you remove yourself from that location, but you happen to overhear some things about the case, then let my staff know that you need to talk to me. You should not tell my staff what it's about. Just tell my staff that you need to talk to me about something. And that applies whether you hear something about the case from an attorney, a witness, a party, a member of the public or the media, or another juror. And that applies at any point in the past since the trial started. So if at any point you've heard a statement or statements about the case, anything about the case or anything that someone may have said was reported in the case, regardless of who it was, whether it was an attorney, a member of the public, a member of the media, another juror, including the jurors who have been released, let my staff know that you received that information and you need to talk to me. Actually, all you should tell my staff is that you need to talk to me, and then we can chat about it. Next, please do not talk to any members of the media about anything until the case is completed. You must not read, view, or listen to any news or media reports that may refer to this case. Because there is media coverage of the trial, you should be particularly vigilant about listening to the radio, watching TV, reading the newspaper, and using the internet. This includes social media. This includes everything. The best thing to do is to just avoid news reports, whether it's on the TV, on the radio, on the internet, or social media. Just avoid news reports. That's the safest way to go. I know what I'm asking of you. I know that's a hard thing, but that's the best thing to do, because otherwise you could be watching the news and then all of a sudden a story comes on and you're going to have to be quick to turn the channel on TV or turn the station on TV or turn the channel on the radio, flip the page if it's the newspaper, exit the screen immediately or avoid the screen immediately if it's on the internet. You're going to have to be quick, and so you need to be thinking ahead so you avoid reading any information about the case. You cannot visit any locations mentioned in the case or conduct your own investigation outside the courtroom. That includes any locations. When I say any locations, it means any locations that may have been mentioned in the case or may be mentioned in the case at some point. And when I talk about conducting your own investigation, that includes looking things up, whether it's the definition of a term or looking anything up related to the case in a dictionary, on a treatise, on a medical book, a legal book, a religious book. We need to be sure that all your decisions in this case will be based only on the evidence and information presented in the courtroom and the instructions of law that I provide to you. Next is you cannot start forming any opinions about the case until I tell you that you can start deliberating. So not only is it inappropriate for you to discuss the case with one another, but it's inappropriate for you to internally in your own minds, privately start deliberating or thinking about the case or forming opinions about the case. You have to keep an open mind throughout the trial until I tell you that you can start deliberating. And you have to remember what I've mentioned throughout the trial. The defendant is presumed innocent, and that presumption of innocence stays with him and must be given effect by the jury throughout the trial. Next, neither sympathy nor prejudice for the prosecution or the defendant may affect any of your decisions in this case. Remember that the attorneys have a job to do, and sometimes they're required to make objections or ask for bench conferences. Please don't hold it against either side when they do that. They have a job to do. They're doing their job. They're doing what they're required to do. Do not read anything into my rulings, and do not infer from my rulings that I'm for one side or the other. You should not keep track of how many objections I sustain for one side versus the other. All that would be improper. I'm doing my best to apply the rules of evidence and other applicable rules of law. That's all. I'm neutral in these proceedings, so it would be improper for you to infer that I'm for one side or for the other side. And then let me again tell you that if any of the three jurors who are no longer on this case contacts you, you have to avoid any communication with them. You have to tell them that you're not allowed to have any contact, whether it's in person, by phone, email, text, or through any other means. So if one of those jurors contacts you, you have to simply respond, "Sorry, I can't talk to you," and delete the message without reading it. And you got to make sure you communicate to that person that you cannot speak to them until the trial is over. I've been talking to you throughout the trial about how important these advisements are. You remember that when you first got here, I said they are extremely important, and I said it 3 times. It was for a reason. They are extremely important. There are 21 of you, and we need each and every one of you to follow each and every advisement. If even one of you violates a single advisement, it can create problems. And if you inadvertently happen to hear information about the case, the worst thing you can do is then share it with other jurors. If that happens, what you have to do is tell my staff that you need to talk to me, and then you can come in here and we can have a conversation, a one-on-one conversation. So if that happens, that's how you do it. You don't tell everybody else about it. Don't tell the other jurors about it. Does that make sense to everyone? And everyone's saying yes and nodding their head yes. I realize how hard this is. I know this is not easy, but as I've mentioned before, we took our time in selecting you as our jurors because we're confident that you're the type of folks who can handle this and who can do this and who will do this. Please don't take an attitude of, it's just one violation, it's no big deal, just a single violation here or a single violation there, what's the big deal? And don't take the attitude of, well, who's going to know? Because I'm telling you, things always come to the surface. And and besides, you should not follow the advisements because you're scared that I'm going to find out or someone's going to find out. You should follow the advisements because you took an oath that you would do that. And you promised me, you swore when you took that oath that you would do that. And I've relied on that, on you taking that oath. And so I'm going to continue to rely on you taking that oath and making sure that you are following that oath, that you are acting consistent with that oath, okay? It's a 3-day weekend. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you have some fun this weekend, and then we'll see you on Monday morning at the usual time, okay? Thank you, folks. Thanks, everyone. Please be seated, everyone. The record should reflect that the jury has exited the courtroom. I have a couple of notes here to chat with you about. First of all, I want to make another record with respect to juror number 378. I have continued to watch her closely, and she's been attentive throughout Since the last time I made a record about her, she continues to be alert, to stay awake. I have not noticed her falling asleep. And so I've been keeping a close eye on her. So I want to make a record that ever since we had that one-on-one discussion, I've been watching her, and I have not noticed her falling asleep once. And her conduct is consistent with what she told me when we had the one-on-one conversation, and that is that sometimes she'll look down, but she's reading or writing things. So that's one thing on my list. The next thing on my list is Exhibit P-TR-800. That was one exhibit that had been initially given to the jury as admitted, and then we discovered that it was attached to another exhibit, and then I think the people said they were going to follow up and provide additional foundation and seek to admit it again. So I still have the note.
I thought I was going to do that through the last witness I had called, Your Honor, and meeting with her last night, I discovered I couldn't do that. It was someone else at the FBI.
Okay, so you're still planning on doing that?
I don't know that I will be able to at this point, Your Honor.
Well, it's an item that we showed the jury. I don't know whether the jury paid any attention to it or not, but we showed it to the jury because it was attached to another item, so.
I may be able to bring someone here to do that, Your Honor.
Okay.
It's a piece of tape, is what it is.
Okay. I'll keep it down as a note on my desk. All right. In terms of schedule, are the people still on track, they think, to finish when we talked about?
I think we are, Your Honor.
Okay. And so either the 19th or the 23rd, one of those?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. All right. On behalf of the defense, on behalf of the people, was there anything that you wanted to talk about? Sorry. Mr. Edson?
Thank you, Judge. On Monday, we anticipate calling a witness from Microsoft related to Hotmail emails. And with candor to the court, the defense has been asking us for copies of the Hotmail emails that we're going to seek to introduce, and it is a very difficult process. It has been a very difficult process based upon the format of the emails that was provided to us by Microsoft. We've been working with Microsoft. Long and short of it is that we now have what we believe will be what we're requesting for the Hotmail emails. I'm going to turn those over to the defense now, and I apologize for the late hour of this, but we've just got them done.
Okay.
I recognize the court probably would like a copy as well at some point. What I need to do is I want to go through them and confirm that those are the finalized emails that we want to do, but I wanted to give it to the defense before the long weekend, even if it's over-inclusive of what we're seeking to introduce, and confirm with the defense at that point. At that juncture, Judge, then we will provide it to the court, and we can go do the same thing that we did with the previous Gmails. I'll also tell the court that there were numerous emails, and we did our best to comply with the court's previous orders as keeping them to a relevant and individualized time period that the court has previously mentioned.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else on behalf of the people?
I think we have several things that we've marked as court exhibits. I have People's Exhibit 2093 that has been marked as C-TR.
Sorry, can you tell me that exhibit?
Exhibit 2093 has been marked as C-TR-58. Ms. Teach McGuire has several too.
All right. Mr. Edson, before Ms. Teach McGuire tells me about court trial exhibits, the Hotmail emails, when are you intending to introduce those? Did you say Monday?
Judge, can I have a moment?
Yes.
Judge, the foundation will be Monday. I don't think the actual emails themselves, they may not be on Monday. That'll be a different day. But the foundational witness will be Monday.
Okay. Ms. Teach McGuire?
Your Honor, if I could mark what was People's Exhibit 4879 as CTR 59. And then I had done as what Ms. Nelson requested and redacted Alex Sullivan from the diagram that was introduced through Yusuf Garbi earlier, which was People's Exhibit 1127 and still is, but I'll mark the original that was originally admitted as CTR 57.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anything else on behalf of the people?
No, Your Honor.
All right. On behalf of the defense, Ms. Spengler, you can review those over the weekend, and then Once you and Mr. Edson confer, and Mr. Edson can tell you which are the specific ones that he's intending to introduce, then you can tell me what objections you have, and we can go from there, okay?
It's fine.
All right. Anything else on behalf of the defense?
Thank you.
I took the defense's request to excuse juror number 901 under advisement, and I haven't made a decision with respect to her yet, so I'm going to continue to think about it. Any other record or request you want to make, Mr. King or Ms. Nelson, with respect to the bench conference that we had right after lunch?
This wasn't with respect to the bench conference. I'll defer to Mr. King on that, but I had just neglected to state our legal basis for excusing juror 901, and I wanted to do that quickly. It's obviously based on Mr. Holmes' right to due process and a fair trial by an impartial jury, as well as to a fair and reliable sentencing proceeding under the 5th, 6th, 8th, and 14th Amendments and their Colorado counterparts.
Okay, thank you. Mr. King?
Judge, with regard to the issue that came up during the bench conference, we haven't had a chance to really look into any law with regard to that, and we don't want to just make a frivolous request. So we'd respectfully ask to be given until Monday to make a decision about that.
Absolutely. Is there anything else we need to talk about on behalf of the defense?
No, Judge.
Okay. All right, in that case, I'll see you on Monday. The court will be in recess. Thank you.
Please rise.